Penpa Tsering is the Speaker of the Tibetan Parliament-in-Exile in Dharamsala, India. He showed us around the chambers and talked about the government in exile, environmental conditions in Tibet, and his hopes for the future.
So we have the political leader today, a graduate from Harvard, Dr. Singh. He sits here. He's overall responsible for administration and political matters. Then religion and culture, I told you we have about 265 monasteries and nunneries in India, Nepal, Bhutan, with about 41,000 monks and nuns. Out of that, 45% are from the Himalayan region, from Ladakh, Lahaul Spiti, Nepal, Bhutan. Then we have a ministry for home. There are about 54 different settlements in India, Nepal, and Bhutan. Bigger ones have about 16,000 people. Smaller ones, 200, 300, 400. At this time of the year, right now, many Tibetans are scattered all over India, in different cities and towns, selling winter clothes. So they go out for 3-4 months, work very hard, then they come back and spend the money for the rest of the year. Because the only other subsistence is 1 acre of dry land, agricultural land. So this department goes up to the rehabilitation of Tibetan settlements. Then we have finance department. We must be spending about $38 million US. Much of it comes from governments, from the Indian government, from the US. And some governments don't give directly, they give through the non-government governments, like Scandinavian countries. The Norwegian government gives through the Norwegian Church Aid, or the Danish government gives through Danida. There's so many institutions and organizations and individuals. And even individuals like you can support one Tibetan student, I think $30 a month or something like that. I don't know the exact number.
Does the government have the ability to tax Tibetans?
We have what is called a voluntary tax. Tibetans in India, Nepal, Bhutan pay 36 rupees. That's 3 rupees per month. And then 10 rupees extra to say that we don't eat for 2 days. But today you don't get one omelette for 10 rupees, not even breakfast. And then people who are employed, they give 2% of the gross salary or 4% of the net salary, whichever is higher, but mostly civil servants. And then Tibetans outside, they give $3 per month, and then $10 for 2 days food. And then if you're employed, $50. So that's $96 in 1 year. But that comes to only about 6% of our total expenditure. And we have education department, about 70 different schools with about 20,000 students under few different administrations. One set of schools run by the Indian government itself under the Human Resource Development Ministry. There's a board called the Central Tibetan Schools Administration. So there are schools in every Tibetan settlement based on depending on the number, from higher secondary to high school to middle school to primary school to Montessori.
The campus. It's very nice.
There is not just Tibetan schools now, Tibetan students. So there are people from Himalayan region who study different traditions of Tibetan Buddhism. There are 4 main Buddhist traditions. But we have been most successful in providing education to the Tibetan people, younger generation of Tibetans. Set of schools run by Tibetan Children's Village. The headquarters is here. It's just in the Dharamsala cantonment. And here is the Department of Security, mostly responsible for information collection from inside Tibet. 60s and 70s very difficult because there was cultural revolution going on in Tibet. People cannot come out, we could not go in. Now it's a little more easy. You have internet and television and a whole lot of things. And Tibetans use a lot of WeChat. It's instant text and voice messages. So it goes into Tibet, bounces back. But one has to be careful in Tibet. If they send information of self-information and something like that, you get caught in prison. And I was telling them before 2008 we used to receive between 3,000 and 3,500 refugees. And now a little more than 500. So So this department is responsible for receiving Tibetans in Nepal. We have a reception center. So those who come from inside Tibet, they are received at the reception center. Both Indian and the Nepalese government are not signatory to the UN the Refugee Convention. So we have a gentleman's agreement with the UNHCR, the Nepalese government, and the Indian government. So those who come out, first they are received at the reception center. Then the Indian embassy in Nepal gives them a paper, a special entry permit to come into India. And then those who want to go, they have an audience with His Holiness. And if it's kids, they go to school. If it's a little elderly, they want to go to join monasteries, they join monasteries. If they're above 18 and study a little bit, we have a 5-year course for adult education here. And many of them go on pilgrimage, Buddhist pilgrimage to Bodh Gaya and Lumbini and other places and return back to Tibet. Some come legally, some come illegally. They are also, of course, for His Holiness security, the Indian government is responsible. So His Holiness is treated as a head of state by the Indian government, so he cannot be searched at any airport. If you see the list of VIPs who cannot be searched, you will find Dalai Lama there. So
right at the top, probably.
No, somewhere down there. The top is President of India and all others. So wherever he travels within India, security is provided by central government as well as state governments. From district to district, it changes. But when he gives teachings to 10,000, 20,000, 100,000, 150,000 people, then we provide additional security from our side. Then we have Department for Information and International Relations. So whole map is divided into these 12 or 13 offices that we have. From Tokyo office is responsible for Japan, Korea, some parts of Southeast Asia. We have one office in Taipei, only for Taiwan. Then one office in Canberra, Australia, New Zealand, some parts of Southeast Asia. One office in Delhi, from Thailand to Middle East. And one office in Kathmandu for Nepal. One office in Moscow for Russia and Central Asian countries, including Mongolia. One office in Pretoria for Africas, but we are not able to go beyond South Africa. And even in Africa, South Africa itself, it's a big problem. Relations are mostly with Inkatha Freedom Party, Prince Buthelezi and some smaller parties. But ANC has a lot of relation with China. So they needed the support of the international community when they had apartheid problem. But once they are freed of the apartheid problem, then they went back to China. And they are not even willing to provide visa to His Holiness to take part in Desmond Tutu's birthday celebrations. Then we have one office in Geneva for most of Southern Europe, one office in Brussels, Central Europe, from Spain to, from Portugal, Spain, the Benelux, Netherlands, Luxembourg and Netherlands. One office in London, Iceland, UK, Scandinavian countries, then 3 small countries in Eastern Europe, Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania. One office in New York for North America. Just recently we opened one office in Brazil for Latin America. They're mostly information dissemination. Then here the health department. So we have both Tibetan medicine and allopathic medicine at every Tibetan center, which also caters to local population, Indians also. Now Tibetan medicine has been recognized by Indian government as one of the alternative traditional medicines, alongside Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, things like that. So it's 8 ministers, and then rest are all members of parliament. Today we have 44. Some of the uniqueness or peculiarity, as you may see, it is that we don't have territorial constituency. Tibet traditionally was divided into 3 provinces. So what China calls Tibet as Tibet Autonomous Region is only half of Tibet. And the rest, the Qinghai province, is where Dalai Lama comes from, where my father comes from. And this is Kham region, the southeastern Tibet. So since Tibet was traditionally divided into 3 provinces, when we have elections here, irrespective of the number of electorate, because there are more Tibetans from central Tibet because of the proximity of border between Tibet and India, and still less from this region and still less from our region. So irrespective of the number, since once we are elected, we are supposed to represent all the 6 million Tibetans and all the 3 provinces of Tibet, we elect 10 members. So lay people like us in India, Nepal, Bhutan, we can vote for 10 people. And then monks, nuns, and tantric practitioners, they can vote for 12 people, 10 from their province and 2 from their religious tradition. So 30 people from the 3 provinces, and then we have 4 main Buddhist traditions, Nyingma, Sakya, Kagyu, Geluk, they all elect 2 members, and one pre-Buddhist religion called Pon, B-O-N. They elect 2 members, so 10 members, 40. Tibetans in Europe elect 2. Tibetans in North America elect 2 members, so we have 44. So now we have an ongoing election process, and we have created 1 seat for Tibet in the outside India, Nepal, Bhutan, in the Asia, Australasia region. So next time we may have 1 from Australia, so 45 members. We have a Supreme Justice Commission, which adjudicates matters, but we don't handle criminal cases. All criminal cases has to go to Indian courts and Indian police because we have to conform to Indian laws. Any civil and administrative matters within the Tibetan community we handle, but Tibetans hate to go to court. We have a Tibetan saying, don't go to a place where there are fights, but go to an oil cellar, at least you'll get some oil to apply on your head. So, in the last 21 years of its existence, we didn't even have 21 cases. And then, so these 3 organs, the Cabinet, the Parliament, and the Supreme Justice Commission. Then we have Election Commission, which supervises election every 5 years for the political leaders' posts and for the Parliament, which is ongoing now. And then we have a Public Service Commission. We have a little more than 600 civil servants, so everybody has to go through written and oral interviews. Then we have Auditor General's Office, which audits every cent of our income and expenditure, and then they come up with recommendations, and we form Public Accounts Committee, and everything is decided in this house. So one could say that we may be the largest administration which uses funds judiciously for what it's meant for, whether it's coming from governments or it's coming from individuals. Everything is audited, hardly any cases of corruption. Not much money for corruption also. So this is the general setup of the exiled Tibetans. And what is more important for Tibet than the political matters is Tibet's environment. We used to call ourselves the land of cool climb, Pö Sinejong, or we say land surrounded by snow mountains, because on all sides are mountain ranges. Then the Westerners came into Tibet in the 18th, 19th century, and they started calling Tibet as the roof of the world because of its altitude, so 13,000, 14,000 feet above sea level average. And then Asians started calling Tibet as the water tower of Asia, or fountain of Asian rivers, because majority of these rivers that flows into 10 different countries originate from Tibet. Then today, Chinese environmental scientists call Tibet as the 3rd pole. So North Pole, South Pole, and Tibet Pole, because Tibet has the largest amount of glaciers and permafrost that feeds all these major rivers. So rivers like Indus and Satluj originate from Tibet, go into India and into Pakistan. Rivers that originate, the Ganges also starts from the border of India, Tibet, originates from the Tapi and all that flows into Nepal. Then the Brahmaputra flows eastward, then suddenly takes a U-turn and comes into Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, and into Bangladesh. Today, China is trying to divert river water from here to up north. And it's engineeringly difficult task, but China is known for doing all those things, building the Great Wall of China. Great Wall of China was once the border between China and the barbarian countries. So the barbarians are Tibetans, Mongols, and Uyghurs who used to attack China from time to time. So they built the Great Wall. Today, the Great Wall is not the boundary; it's the backbone of China. If you look at the map, you know. So, and they are also planning to build a dam here, which is twice the size of Three Gorges Dam, which is the biggest in the world. So, which would mean inundating about 150 to 200 kilometers of land upstream. And these are all seismic zones. Just this year we had earthquake in Nepal. We had earthquake in Hindu Kush, in the Afghanistan-Pakistan region. So these are all seismic zones. If something happens to the size of a dam that's twice the size of Three Gorges, then what would happen? One could imagine what could be the destruction in all these downstream areas. Then the Salween flows into Burma. The Mekong flows into Burma, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. Then the two major rivers of China, the Yangtze originates from Tibet. The Yellow River originates from Tibet, the Huanghe. So these are two big rivers in China. So essentially, all river waters, all perennial river waters of Asia originate from Tibet. And some say that one third of the world population has something to do or the other with the Tibet's environment, Tibet's rivers. Because China, on just one river on the Mekong, how many dams? So many dams. And in the downstream countries, because these are some of the most densely populated areas in the world. And many people have to change their livelihood because the river coming down is being affected. So we say today we are political refugees, but in another 30, 40, 50 years down the line, there will be so many environmental refugees. And Tibet majorly is grassland, particularly in these areas. Tibetan population are very scattered, not all places are habitable. These parts are mostly desert areas. So the problem with when we say we don't have time, because China's policy is assimilation. They derive from Soviet Union. So sometimes I say on Chinese national flag, you have this one big star and 4 small stars. If you say the big star is Han Chinese, then small stars are Manchus, Mongols, the inner Mongolians. They like to call themselves Southern Mongolians. And Uyghurs, the East Turkestanis, and the Tibetans. Now in Manchuria, even though China was ruled by Mongols and Manchus, but they did not rule from their respective regions. They ruled from Beijing. And so today the question is, who are real Chinese? Now some say even the Mongols are Chinese. So in that sense, then all the areas conquered by Genghis Khan also belongs to China. He conquered about half of the world. So in Manchuria, there's hardly any people who speak Manchukuo language. So the language is gone, culture is gone. Now in southern Mongolia, or inner Mongolia as China calls it, 80% of the population are Turks and Chinese, Han Chinese. Only 20% are Mongols. Their story is almost gone. Now in Uyghur and Tibet. In Tibet, starting from the capital Lhasa to all major towns and cities is Chinese majority. They don't go to villages because they can't make money. So, therefore, I say within the Tibetan community, we discuss about independence, middle way, and all that. I said, forget about it. Another 30, 40 years down the line, if we are not able to go back, have some agreement with China, then you will find Tibet town in Tibet overwhelmed by Chinese, just like you find Chinatown in your countries. So therefore, we say we don't have time because the demographic aggression is severe. So earlier, now today China is called as the factory of the world. And when they can go as far as Africa and Latin America for natural resources to feed these factories, why not occupy Tibet or Uyghur? Earlier, it was not possible to exploit Tibet's natural resources. Because Tibet is vast and abundant and in natural, total virgin land. Tibetans never excavated anything. So they built a railway from Kormo up north, they linked to Lhasa. Here, Kormo is linked to mainland China. So before the railways, it was difficult to take out anything. So even to send one truckload of military supplies up to Indian border, people used to say that you need at least 2-3 trucks to support that. You know. Now with the railways, at one time people thought it would be technologically not possible because you have to build railway tracks over permafrost. And permafrost can go up and down by 4 or 5 meters during extreme weather. But they built that. Now it's being linked up to Shigatse, another town where my mother was born, and they have planned to link it to Nepal. And another 10-20 years, they have one more track from Lanchao to Lhasa, and one more track from Chengdu, they call it, in English it's written as Chengdu, from Chengdu to Lhasa. So these railway networks, and there's a vast network of roads, and now new airports are coming up. So with all this infrastructure, of course China says that we are putting in a lot of money in Tibet. They are putting a lot of money, but all on infrastructure to bring in more Chinese, to take out more Tibet's natural resources. So we don't have much time. So that's political, of course. I told you there's no conventional forms of protest. You say long live Dalai Lama, you go to prison. You paste a political poster, you go to prison. You sing a patriotic song, you go to prison. And religious, the numbers at one time we used to have 7,700 monks, 5,500 monks, 3,300 monks in Sera Tepung Kande. Today it's reduced to 500, 600 monks. So severe. Now we just got a document from Kham area, the Jiru area, some 70 pages long regulation, where you'll be punished for everything. So they have laid down rules and regulations as to how to practice Buddhism in monasteries. There are constant surveillance through CCTV. Of course, always propaganda lessons, your loyalty to the nation. So then 2 years ago, they were forced to put up pictures of Mao Zedong, Deng Xiaoping, Jiang Zemin, Hu Jintao, along with the Buddhist icons. So the biggest thing is the Chinese government, the atheist government, wants to be responsible for reincarnation of lamas, because lamas have a lot of influence on the Tibetan community. So they did with Panchen Lama, but the Tibetans don't agree with Chinese selection of Panchen Lama. So in Lhasa city, you won't find picture of the Chinese Panchen Lama. And you can't have picture of the Dalai Lama chosen Panchen Lama who disappeared at the age of 6 along with his family. We still don't know whether he's alive or not. Western nations, UN, everybody tried, but China says he's alive, he's studying well, he's healthy, that's it. We still don't know where he is. So they sell picture of only the 10th Panchen Lama. So China's now biggest concern is the reincarnation of the 14th Dalai Lama. So I tell my Chinese friends, let us see whether the Dalai Lama can outlive the Communist Party or the Communist Party will outlive Dalai Lama in the days to come. So within China, of course, the hardline Chinese are more powerful now. So they believe that Dalai Lama is already aged, he is a human being, he might die in another 5-10 years. If the Dalai Lama dies, then Tibet will no more be an international issue. And inside Tibet, we can rule with an iron hand. Now there are a set of liberals or little bit free-minded Chinese leaders who believe that Dalai Lama is the key to resolving the Tibetan issue. Since he is not asking for independence but autonomy, but they are in the minority. So that is the situation inside Tibet. So our job is to keep the Tibetan issue alive till such a time. Because today's China, the greatest fear is the middle class for the government. As you saw from June, July this year to now, some $4 trillion worth of stock market gone down the drain. $4 trillion. So to make that kind of a foreign exchange reserve also, it took them 15, 20 years. No? And all this money comes from, much of this money comes from middle class, who have even borrowed money from financial institutions to make quick buck in the stock market, but then it's totally crashed. And government is pumping a lot of money to stabilize it, but how long can they keep, So on the one hand, they are communist. On the other hand, they are capitalists. Then again, capitalists, you have got to control everything. So on the reincarnation issue, His Holiness sometimes jokingly say, if Chinese are really interested about reincarnation, they should study Buddhism first. Then second, they should look for Mao Zedong's reincarnation and Deng Xiaoping's reincarnation. Then maybe Dalai Lama's. So I was telling them that this is not a picture, it's a carpet from Mongolia. We used to have these three big kingdoms: Chinese kingdom, Mongolian kingdom, and Tibet. The center one is the Songtsen Gampo. So Chinese claim that Tibet was part of China from his time in 7th century AD, because he married a Chinese princess. Because at that time he was so powerful that they had to give the princess in marriage. And he also had a Nepalese princess other than Tibetan wives. So now that story is gone. Then Chinese say, oh, Tibet was part of China from 13th century. Because Mongols' influence on China, Tibet started in 13th century, much before Mongols invaded China. And we developed this priest-patron relationship. Tibetan lamas became teachers to the Mongol Muslims, and they turned into Buddhists. So even today, some of the Mongols would say, we were descendants of Genghis Khan, but you Tibetans turned us as into Buddhists and we lost our country. So that was during Sakya Pandita's time. Then they say, oh, from 18th century. Now, Chinese leaders are saying, Dalai Lama should say that Tibet was part of China since antiquity. There is no time limit. Okay. And Dalai Lama says, I'm not a historian. I cannot change history. It's better that we leave history to historians. Yeah. What is important to us is the future of our people. So for the benefit of both China and Tibet, we don't seek independence, but autonomy. But Chinese even now say, oh, Dalai Lama is a splittist. That's a problem. And China is saying that Dalai Lama should say that Taiwan is part of China. Now, what have we got to do with Taiwan? In the future of Taiwan will be decided by Taiwanese.
Yeah.
So they put these impossible tasks, the conditions. Yeah, and these paintings on the sides are actually, we have these cloths all plated over each other. So these paintings are done on like Thangka painting, very intricately done by hand on plywood, and we put it up there.
Yes, small pieces.
Yeah. And we relay this live in Dharamsala through cable network because we don't have satellite. And the Tibetans outside can watch on YouTube or recordings.
How often do you meet?
We meet
together?
Once in March and once in September.
Okay.
March mostly for budget. We also discuss about
What are you looking as a solution to all this problem?
we are saying
You guys are trying to get autonomy or something?
Autonomy, and we have studied so many different autonomous arrangements around the world. Whether if it's with the United States, you have the Aboriginal people, they have their reservation, and there are also some states like United States of Micronesia, which is part of America, but has a different arrangement with the United States. Then with Canada, you have the Nunavut people. They also have almost same area as Tibet, in the north of Canada, where the Inuits live. They also have about 2.5 million square kilometers. And whole of Tibet is about 2.5 million square kilometers. That's 1/4 of China. China is 9.7 million square kilometers. And you also have Quebec under Canada. Under UK, you have the Irish, you have the Scottish, you have the Welsh. There are also some other, the Gibraltar and other autonomous arrangement with UK. With Finland, you have the Åland Island. The unique arrangement is that even if Åland Islands are under Finland, the Finnish defense ships cannot stay in the Åland Island waters not more than 24 hours. So it's a zone of peace. His Holiness' vision is also to have Tibet as a zone of peace and one of the biggest natural reserve. Then under Denmark, you have Faroes Island and Greenland autonomous arrangements. And then under Spain, you have the Basque, you have Catalonia. There is also a very special case like Andorra, which is between France and Spain. It's a very small place with 60 or 80,000 people, but they survived First World War and Second World War, and today they are an autonomous entity on their own. They have two presidents. One is the president of France, and other is the bishop of the next province in Spain. So we studied all that. Under Italy, you have South Tyrol and 5 other autonomous arrangement, and Zanzibar under Tanzania, Bougainville in Papua New Guinea, Cook Islands under Australia. So we studied so many cases. In India, you have Jammu Kashmir, you have just north of Bangladesh. I forgot that place. So under India also there are several autonomous regions. Like in Jammu and Kashmir, if you are not born there before 1952 or so, you are not a, even though you are Indian citizen, you can't buy land there in Jammu and Kashmir. So there are some protection for this autonomous arrangement. So what we are saying is essentially China has very asymmetrical the autonomous arrangements. They have these autonomous regions like Tibet, Uyghur, Mongols, Manchus, but they also have special administrative regions like Hong Kong, Macau, because the one country, two system was developed to incorporate Taiwan into China, but that didn't work. So they applied it to Hong Kong when it was handed over from British to China. And now they also have special economic zones, which has again some more powers than other regions. So these are developed specifically for trade. So, but in China the problem is every level you have the Communist Party hierarchy and the National People's Congresses, and at every level majority of the decisions are taken by the Communist Party hierarchy. So there's hardly any power for the National People's Congress at every level. They're just rubber stamps. So what we are asking is genuine autonomy, not just in name. So even Tibet, the Tibet Autonomous Region, they call it, but there's hardly any autonomy. Then other parts of Tibet, they call it Tibet Autonomous Prefecture, Tibet Autonomous County, hardly any autonomy. So now what I believe is that now historically Tibet with this huge landmass, has played the buffer between the two most populous nations in the world, China and India. Now, if Tibet gains autonomy, then we can be the bridge between these two most populous nations. Now, why do you think China has this all-weather friendship with Pakistan? Higher than the heavens, deeper than the sea, they call it today, their relationship, Pakistan and China. And they supply Pakistan with nuclear technology, they supply Pakistan with missile technology, they are developing port, south of Balochistan, the Gwadar port, built by a Singaporean consortium, but they kept 5 acres of mainland, without which you can't do with the port. So finally they didn't give that to the Singaporeans, so it was taken over by the Chinese. It was funded by the Chinese. They are building port in Sri Lanka also. Just to contain India from all sides, whether it's domestic issues. For a very long time, we believe that there are hands of Chinese behind Khalistan, behind Ulfa, behind Naxalite, everything. I have a friend in Nagaland who was studying medicine. He used to tell me, Penpa, we are friends. but I like the Chinese because they supply us arms. So just to keep India busy with domestic problems, and then India's foreign policy, all of Pakistan, Kashmir, they left out all other countries. Today in Nepal, there's fight over influence, Chinese and India. In the last 20 years, Chinese have stepped up too much. They have influence on politicians, bureaucrats, media, military, everywhere. And today, Nepal's downtown area called Thamel is mostly Chinese now. I'm sure Indian government spends a lot of money, but it goes into politicians' pockets. You don't see. China is very smart. They built the ring road around Kathmandu. Oh, this ring road is built by China. So within the general population, there's much more hatred towards the Indians. And now there is a huge blockade because of politics in Nepal, with new constitution and new government. And then you have the Indian origin Madhesis on the south side, not allowing basic necessities to go in. And you have beautiful cars in Nepal, foreign made, but no petrol, no diesel. They are planning, they were talking about getting it from Pakistan. But to get it from Pakistan, you have to come through Tibet, through the Karakoram highway. And transportation cost itself is so much. China permits only 100 metric tons. It just started coming in about a week ago. But how, that is not enough. We're talking about Bhutan, but Bhutan has better relations with India, and they also get their supplies from India. So Modi went to Bhutan first after he became, even though Bhutan is the smallest country, it was the closest and the friendliest to India. Then Bangladesh was given birth by India fighting against Pakistan. Today Bangladesh has more military pacts with China. Similarly with Sri Lanka. Now after the government change and Sri Sena came in during Rajapakse's time, he allowed Chinese submarines to land in Sri Lanka. So it's a huge threat for India, And China has now this big plan to build this maritime Silk Route. The land Silk Route was already there, which linked China to Africa and Europe. Now they are planning a maritime Silk Route from South China Sea below Sri Lanka to Africa and this thing. So China has resolved all its border problems with Mongolia, Russia, everybody except India. Now, even after 17 rounds of dialogue at the highest level from China and India, they are not able to resolve it. Because this will not be resolved unless and until Chinese government trusts the Tibetan people. And they don't trust the Tibetan people. And China may be the only country who spends more money on internal security than external security. So this itself shows a huge deficit of trust between the rulers and the ruled. You just need a spark somewhere where things can happen. It can go very wrong. But at one time we used to say when the United States coughs, the whole world gets the flu. Today you need any Greece to make the whole European Union get the flu. Now, it's not like the Cold War era of those days between Russia and China. There were hardly any interest from the Western nations in Russia in terms of investment and stake. And today, China is the second largest economy in the world. Who made China second largest? All developed countries. They invested money, so much at stake. So some say China might break up like Russia, the Soviet Union. I said no. Even if China is breaking down, the whole of the Western world will come and make it stand up. If you read Kissinger on China, you will understand China was about to fall apart many times. But it's the US and other nations who kept it up. So the fear is if something happens to China, if there was something happening to Communist Party rule, then they might flash attacks. And they have kept all this open. I believe if China wishes, China alone can resolve the North Korean issue. You don't need 3 parties, 6 parties. This is all a bargaining chip for China. Then they are now being very aggressive in South China Sea. Now when you keep the North Korean issue alive, and when you have this authoritarian rule there, and then China uses that for this purpose or that purpose, then whole, Japan, South Korea, Europe, America, everybody gets busy. with that one issue. And with South China Sea, China keeps the whole Southeast Asian country busy. So if you go to any of these regions, you will hear at least one article every day on South China Sea and China's aggressive moves in that. And again, problems with Taiwan on some islands, Senkaku Islands with Japan, Spratlys in South China Sea. Now, Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, everybody is feeling very unsafe. So it's right now a very dynamic situation. And with India, very easy. You have this McMahon line, and there are also large swath of no man's land. China crosses over the no man's land, build a tent there. Tomorrow, Indian press is full of it. So that's how they keep the whole world busy. And China has declared what is called as the Air Defense Identification Zone. Yeah. So if any flight has to go over that there, you have to report to the Chinese authorities. Now when they can claim the air, then why not the sea? Very smart, no? So this is the status right now. Now I believe if Tibet gets autonomy, we have very good relation with Indian government. We trust them and they also trust us, and they have been very kind to us. So even now we share everything with Indian government, whether it's dialogue with China or not happening, whatever. And then we also have to learn to trust China. If there is stability in Tibet, where China is not, too much worried about what they call as the frontier region, to safeguard the nation, you have to safeguard the frontiers, and to safeguard the frontiers, then you have to, do this, and then all the Tibetans, Uyghurs are imprisoned always on national security. So, what if China is a real good all-weather friend, higher than the heavens and deeper than the sea with Pakistan? What Pakistan really needs is good education for the children, more investment and employment, not missiles, And China has about 9 nuclear bases in Tibet. I was told once, one of our friend in Rajya Sabha, normally, the Defense Committee of the Indian Parliament, when they go around to their visits, the Indian military does not share too much secrets with them because they are politicians, after all. So all they do is send majors and captains to carry their bags so to let them feel important and all that. So at one time I was told they had a meeting in Kolkata, and one general came, and then he talked about the strategic location of nuclear bases, Chinese nuclear bases on Tibet, and the differences in altitude, and the strategic advantage of China, all in detail. The whole committee fell into pin-drop silence. And in the committee was also General Roy Chaudhary, a former general in Rajya Sabha. Then he broke the silence by saying, "Thank God we are not the target," because West Bengal was a communist state at that time. And everybody had a laugh. So I was really afraid, strategically. So if Tibet issue is resolved, and if China does not need this fear of, or the strategy to contain India through Pakistan, then Pakistan's relation with India can get better. Therefore, I say we can promote more stability and security in the South Asia region if the Tibetan issue is resolved and there is better understanding and relation between China and India, the two most populous nations and the two biggest nations in Asia. But not too many buyers. Everybody is too busy with their own politics and everything.
What message you want to give to Americans, like average American, how we can help with your cause?
We saw in Paris just a few days ago. So now this is a globalized world and so dependent on each other. So this is very Buddhist philosophy, the interdependence of nature. So now it is not a matter of distance. When we visited Australia, they were saying, we were asking them, why did you have your capital in Canberra, where you have bigger cities in Melbourne and Sydney? And I was told that there were two fights between Canberra and Melbourne saying that we need to be the capital. And finally they decided at a central location in Canberra. And they built Canberra at a particular distance from the coast. Because at that time, the longest missile at that time from Russia, it was not supposed, if the Russian frigates come there, then they are not supposed to reach Canberra if they fire from the coast. Yeah, so today, now, intercontinental ballistic missiles are there, nuclear technology is there. Distance doesn't matter. You know, what happens in one part of the world definitely has a lot of repercussions all around the world. You know, so we are also interconnected. It's not a matter of how free you are today and how unfree others are. So if we do not take care of the unfree people and free them, tomorrow you might also come and those things will knock on your door. You know, then what happens?